Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Sneha Ru. I'm a palliative physician and founder of Ori Kalankini. Ori Kalankini is an organization that's changing narratives around menstruation and sexuality in India using art, theatre, and dialogue. This series is called Leaning into the Network series, where we bring people from different parts of our network to talk about their work, to talk about the COVID relief efforts they're doing, or share concepts that are dear to them. And today I'm very happy to invite Luku, who is a co-founder of Hobdo, into to have a conversation with us. Hi, Luku.
Hi, Sneha. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to come on board and have this conversation with us. Mm,
Of course,
we, yeah.
of course.
We ask the same first question to everyone. That is, when were you made aware of your gender? And in your case, when did you become aware of your gender? Both.
Okay. Made aware of my gender, I would say right from my childhood. So I am from Tezpur. You have been to Tezpur. Tezpur is a very small town. So here, I actually I studied in an all girls school for 12 years. So definitely throughout my school days, I was made to made aware of my gender. एक तो है कि I was because I am a girl, like I was born in a girl's body, in a female body. So I had to wear skirt to school because that was a uniform. And then came, even my friends, my neighbors, my friends, who were my neighbors. When I used to play with them, they would not like a girl playing with them and everything, and they would only prefer like when we are playing cricket. I used to love playing cricket, so even when we are playing cricket, they would make me fetch the ball, and I would never get to bat because we when one is playing cricket, everybody likes to bat basically, but as kids, mostly as kids, we like to bat instead of instead of being a bowler. So they would ask me to get me to fetch the ball just because I was a girl, and as we grew up, they would not even want to talk to me because I was a girl. And then there were certain things, back in school. I know it was very irresponsible of me, but I used to when I used to ride my cycle, I used to ride it really fast. I know it was very irresponsible of me because it's not, accidents could have happened and it wasn't safe. But then the complaints that came to my parents were like, uh, she rides her fast cycle so fast, she's a girl, and all those things. Like, it was very, the complaint came as my as as a gender issue and not more of an accident wala. It came as an accident wala issue, but then more like a gender wala issue as well. So yeah, like right
Mm-hmm.
from my childhood, I was made to realize that I am a woman, that I am a girl, that I do not have to do this, I don't have to do that. Because why? Because I'm a girl. And then as I grew up, I remember this one incident when I was eating some pakoras near my house. And then what I did was I used to keep my wallet in my back pocket. So when I pulled out my wallet from my back pocket, then I think the lady noticed or something. Then that evening itself, when my father comes home, he says that, you you always act like a boy. You keep your wallet in your back pocket. This lady told me today. Wow, like wow, people have so much idle time that they have time to even notice from where I'm pulling out my wallet, and then even like my father also thought that like he wanted to raise three like beautiful women, and so he would not let me keep my hair short because apparently people would think that I am a guy, uh, because I used to dress up like a guy. So yeah, I was definitely made aware that of my gender identity, but then I did not know that this is what gender is. But I came in terms with my true gender. Like, I had always known that I'm non-binary. That I have always known right from my childhood. I have known that I'm non-binary. But about my true gender identity, I think it was only, um, when I went to Tesco University, when I was studying in Tesco University in 2015. That is when I came in terms with my gender identity. I realized that this is me and there's no changing to that. So I started to I permanently started to keep my hair short. Before that, there were times when I would cut my hair and come back home, and my father would be like, you cut your hair, and I'd be like, no, I shampooed my hair today. So there were even times like those. So I finally realized that I want to be out and about my gender identity, and I want to accept it because I have fought it for like too long. So that's that. And eventually when I walked the first Guwahati Queer Pride, that is when I met other people and I got to know them, and I realized that I was not alone. That is when I fully accepted myself, and I started being just me, being just the way I want to. So yeah,
Thank you.
that's my story.
Yeah. Um, just to let you know, Luku and I met at an event advocacy workshop organized by YP Foundation. And yeah, she's been a real good help when I went to Northeast along with my friend Saddam. So yeah, thank you for sharing your story online. Now, Hobdo.
Yes.
What does Hobdo mean, and why did you choose this name?
The thing is, Hobdo in Assamese means, like, there are two meanings to Hobdo in Assamese. It means both words and sound. Like, so like we use the same word for both of these words and sound. So like when I was trying to find the name to the organization, to the movement, I would say, to the initiative. So
Hmm.
eventually, at first, like, it started on in 2018 as a pre-event of Guwahati Queer Pride 2018. So it was the first ever event on LGBTQIA plus, which was held in Assam. Sorry, it was held in Tezpur. There were others held in Assam, but in Tezpur, in my hometown, there was nothing as such. So that we were thinking of names, like what to name it, and then one guy came up with the name QWERTY Essential. It came from the word quintessential, and quintessential meant queer talk is essential. So it was quite an interesting name, and we went with it, and we did the program and everything, and we got a very amazing response, and then we realized that we need to take the work forward. But we wanted a very something local, something that we could relate to. And as I was trying to find names, I was asking about my friends, what do you think, something that says dialogue, and somebody said kotha, as in, like, uh, kotha means dialogue, like words. And
Hmm.
then like a colleague of mine said hobdo, and I was like, right, Hobdo. I mean, Hobdo means both words and sound, because that is what comprises dialogue, right? Words and sound create dialogue, and the dialogue can create, a movement. And through a movement, we can bring the dignity of the LGBTQI plus identifying people,
Hmm.
their right to life with dignity. We can bring that about only with dialogue and movement. So that is how Hobdo came about.
Wow. I've never asked this question to you before. I always assumed it's like making sound, like making
Oh,
noise.
okay. I didn't
So,
know that. So yeah, and that is why like, if you see beneath our logo, it's written like dialogue, dignity, movement. So that is what Hobdo means. Dialogue, then dignity, and the movement.
ah, all right. So, see that the name of the organization is Assamese, and the identity, because even Assamese culture is pretty diverse. Like there's so many tribes in it. What have you seen? You did describe a little about how it was growing up, and that too in an all girls school. But when you look at LGBTQI plus movement at large and focus on the region of Assam, what have you seen while growing up? Were there representations? Like, how was it like?
I mean, growing up, honestly, I did not know much about LGBTQI plus. Honestly speaking, because I belong to Tezpur, I did not like move about as much as I do now. I was not very, like, I did not travel as much. It was very close. Like, my movements were close till Tezpur only. Sometimes I would go to Guwahati, but not beyond that. You know. So for me, growing up, I did not see anything which was which I could relate to LGBTQI plus, except for the Hijra community, except for the transgender community. So, and even then, like the only by the word transgender, we only understood the Hijra community. We did not know back then that there is a the transgender is an umbrella term, that there are so many gender identities under transgender umbrella. We did not know all of that. And even like growing up, I knew that I was non-binary, but I was like, okay, this has to be, I used to give myself, I used to analyze my own gender identity. I used to tell myself, because when I was like, I wasn't born then, when my mother was pregnant with me. At that point of time, like, I have two elder sisters. So my father was like, like older fathers are, that we want a boy, baby boy, yeah, baby boy, we are going to have a baby boy. So I thought that, because my parents wanted a baby boy, maybe that's why I turned out to think like a boy, but born in the wrong body, something like that. That is the explanation I would give myself, because there was nobody to tell me that you belong to a different gender, you do not, this is your gender identity. There was nobody who could tell me that, because everybody was trying to force you know force the cisgender, cis normative thought process on me, that that I have to behave like a girl, like the way society wants a girl to behave. I need to behave like that. Why? Because I was born with a vagina. So basically that was it. So growing up, honestly speaking, I did not see much of LGBTQIA plus. There wasn't a space.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for me, even if I talk about not just a gender, if I talk about sexuality, then growing up, because I was in an all girls school, like it was like being attracted to each other was very common. For like at that time, it was very common for an all girls school, like, and we were in a convent school.
Hmm.
So like I was definitely attracted to girls, definitely. And like I have had, like, I think in my 12 years of having studied in the school, I think I have had 12 crushes. And even then I did not know what was that, because I thought it was a convent thing, because people make it that way, people make it
Yeah.
sound that way, that it's a convent thing. कॉलेज पहुंचोगे तो मतलब ठीक हो जाएगा सब, पर ठीक नहीं हुआ। अभी क्या करूं मैं? तो it became like that for me in college. Even when I got into college, even then I was questioning my gender identity, my sexuality, everything. And yet I did not have that space, because nobody was there to talk to, nobody would explain it to me. At college, even things got even more difficult, because in school I was in an all girls school, so I was the stud in school. Like everybody was like, oh, I would behave like a guy, and every girls would be like, whoa, nice, and all that. College में आके there were guys and girls, it was co-ed. So I was lost at that time. I was like, oh shit, competition.
No.
So
Hmm. I won't talk about toxic masculinity. Yeah. You can go on.
that was a joke. That was a joke. That was seriously a joke. You know me. So yeah, so that was the thing. The problem itself was that nobody was talking. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Everybody was ignorant. If there was a guy who was, who was feminine, they would call him, things like, in SMS they would call him Mikey Moore, which is very derogatory. Mikey in SMS is a derogatory word for woman. So they would call him a woman. So those they used to call those things to people. And so when in college, I had this pressure on myself to act act ladylike. You know, the college uniform was not. It was not like who is. Women had to wear salwar kameez, men had to wear pants, like trousers and like shirt. Women did not have a choice to wear trousers and shirt, even if they wanted to. It was either salwar kameez or mekhela chadar or sari with a certain color. So that was it. So yeah, college was, I think I would say college was the hardest of my entire life. Those 5 years were the toughest of my entire life, I would say. So
Hmm.
that was the scenario here in my hometown. And even with the hijra community, the way, like, people's response towards them, people's thoughts towards them, we were like, we grew up believing that we should be scared, you know that was the way we were brought up, be it our family, be it our peers or relatives, or even school, I would say. Even school, even our education system.
Thank you so much for sharing. You know, uniform must be so, so uncomfortable, and the whole, yeah, I can just, but I can only empathize, even have a look. I can't say I can empathize also. Yeah, um, but thankfully now you have Hobdo, and
Yes.
I want to know what work is Hobdo doing, or what has it done in the past, till now, because you faced so much and it became like a movement. It was a pre-Pride event, and can you talk a little about the you know activity that you do?
So I still remember on 30th January 2018, exactly.
Time?
We I think it was from 5:30 or 6, something like that.
Ooh,
So we started the move. We started the dialogue in Tezpur University. So there were a lot of people. We brought in people from the community, and even from from all the we tried to have as much representation from the community as possible in that event, so that if we are starting the dialogue, people should be aware that it's an inclusive, all inclusive dialogue that we are starting. So there were like people from the community, they got the platform, they came and they got a platform to speak, they started to interacted with the people. And then we had a film screening as well, so that it becomes because I think the visual medium is a very strong medium to uh, get your message across, right? So we were using the visual medium, we screened the documentary film, and the response that we got was overwhelming, honestly speaking. Then following that, we did another such program, wherein we had a conversation, like we interacted with the students of Tezpur Law College. And in that also we used the visual medium, we screened the film, and then we talked about LGBTQI plus, about the different identities, about the issues and all those things. And then we after that we started working up on the creating a safe space for the community. So like I work at Green Hub Tezpur, which is an amazing organization. You have been there. So Green Hub is
that's why
now.
visual medium.
Yes, exactly. So Green Hub, my mentor Rita Banerjee, she I don't even have to ask her. So I'm like, Rita, can I use the space? She's like, you need to ask. I was like, no, I'm just informing. So it's that kind of a thing. It makes you feel so inclusive then, right? So we started using up the GH space for community meetups. We started building up the youth in the community, especially in Tezpur. We got to know from somebody, we got to know him, got to know that, and somebody brought their own friend along, and that way, one by one, we started building up the community, and we started trying to bring them together at one space, so that they could share their issues, they could talk to each other, we could meet up, and we basically be support system to each other. Um, so um, and we were like we made sure to also in these, when we are talking about inclusiveness, we also tried to bring in the people from the Hijra community, people identifying as belonging to the Hijra community. We also brought them in, and they were very happy, because that was like, because they hadn't found that inclusivity anywhere. So they were able to speak their minds out. They were able to share their lives with us. So that we have been working on. And then after our work started getting recognized, I was also invited to Kaziranga University to hold such a session with the students. And again, the response was mind blowing. We again screened the film, and then yeah, the students, it takes time for them, but they were very they were very, what would I say, uh, they were very sensitive towards what I was saying, and it's overwhelming that after every event that we hold, somebody or the other comes to you and they say, "Thank you so much. I was always looking for a for a space like this. I identify as LGBTQIA plus. Like it's amazing. It's like, that feeling is overwhelming. And then we also, like, recently there was a youth wellness, there was a youth wellness festival which is held by the Youth Wellness Hub of the Lucopia Gopinath Bodlo Regional Institute of Mental Health. So they also invited us to hold a panel discussion. So I was in charge of, holding the panel discussion. So, I invited my friends from from Guwahati and Tezpur, and then we had the panel discussion. And again, the response, it's always the response from the audience that, blows our mind away. That inclusivity is coming with time. And so we are also working towards, and also, like, not just a safe space, but we are also we also try to, once we went out cycle riding to Tezpur University from Tezpur, like from our community. So it's like these small things, I think they count. So we are trying to do as much as, like, we are trying to take baby steps at a time, because this is an issue that needs baby steps. We cannot, go out and loud about it. So we are trying to take baby steps, one at a time. And then we also celebrated the 1 year anniversary of the reading down of Section 377. So we had an open mic event, and in
That
fact,
was, yeah.
yeah, like many allies came, they sang, they danced, and it was amazing. It was so beautiful. In fact, even my sisters and my niece came for that event, and it was overwhelming. So yeah, like I said, we are taking baby steps. We are doing what we can, but our main focus is to, build up the community here in Tezpur.
Yeah, and I think these are very important steps, like, having a place to call your own and having, some people to call your own, doing little things together. And they can be actually what we call respite care, to get some respite out of that day-to-day drudgery. And because homophobia won't end anytime soon. Our parents won't stop asking questions anytime soon. Like, it takes a long time. And then meanwhile, when you have a place or a group of people to go to, that's really, really helpful. Thank you for the work that you do. But your screen has frozen. Are you there? Luku? We are going to give her some time. Hmm. So I think Luku has dropped out of the call. Hmm. So I'm going to go call her again. And meanwhile, we'll just stay live. Ah, she's back.
Yes.
Yes,
Sorry, some
no problem.
connection went out.
Can we go to the gallery view again?
Yes. Yeah, I'm in the gallery view. Like, I'm in the speaker view.
So now we have to go to gallery view because this is speaker view.
This is gallery view.
Are you on top of me?
I am not on top of you. Like, I'm beside you like a friend.
Yeah, we know that your loved one is watching it. This was just a joke. Like when we were trying to go live, so Tuku said, on top of you. I was like, no, 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 that sounds so wrong. Yeah. So I was saying thank you for the work that you do. That's what we need, spaces and people to call our own. I would like to ask you about the amazing lineup of events that you have this month, and what are you up to, and who are the speakers, and what are you trying to do?
So basically, this month we like, we have a lot of events planned up. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we have a lot of events, coming up, because we thought that this is Pride Month. After all, we need to do something, and our team is also building up, because at first it was just three of us, and now it's like five of us. So so there are like what, like it's basically like what we have been already trying to do. What, like we are trying to create this safe space, or whatever we are trying to do. This is more through an educational way, through an educational, what can I say, um, through an educational perspective, through an educational medium, basically. So like I said, that we try to educate people about LGBTQI plus issues and what are the terms and everything. So we thought that a lot of people, be it from our community, or be it or be it the allies, or they want to learn about LGBTQI plus, but they do not know which medium to go to, with what medium to access. So we thought that why not plan out a series of webinars, wherein we can have people who come in, and they can talk about LGBT, and it will be like a whole program. It will be like a whole course on LGBTQI plus and issues. And so it'll be like LGBT 101. so
Yeah.
so basically, like, we have thought out the, so for now we have thought out the sessions, and what sessions are going to be. But the speakers are still to approach, we are still to approach the speakers, because we haven't been able to plan out the dates basically by now. So once we definitely speakers and bring them in. So we are the topics that we are taking are gender identity, like gender expression. This all be in one session. Then in the next session we'll have sex, then sexual act and sexuality, sexual expression, all those will be another session. Then we'll have feminism and LGBTQI plus, and basically what is the relation between LGBT, like how can LGBTQI plus and feminism be, how are they related, you know? So that, and then there's another session on sexual and reproductive health rights, and especially with special reference to the pandemic and the lockdown situation, and knowing what people went through and all those things. And that session is going to be taken by none other than our Dr. Sneha Ru. So so yeah.
That's what we
Yes.
do. Like keep calling friends and talking. Sorry.
uh,
Yeah.
no, it'll be fun, I know, like um, then there's a session on gender and menstruation. So basically the speaker, we're looking at the speaker, addressing menstruation, and like what non-binary people have to go through, and what issues they face, all those. And then there'll be a session on STIs, basically on sexually transmitted infections. So because the thing is, people take people, they kind of, people are very insensitive when it comes to STIs. So basically we want to sensitize them about STIs and what they actually are, not to not to be scared of it, rather take precautions, and how they can take precautions and all those things, then definitely mental health, very important, when we are talking about LGBTQI plus mental health. And then there'll be like about how there can be community resilience, and how can there be peer support. And then another session on queer affirmative therapy. um, so so like those are the sessions. And then there'll be other sessions on understanding the Hijra community, because the Hijra community is a very, it's a very old community, and it's a part of our society, and yet people do not try to understand them, people do not try to learn about them. So through this session we really want to reach out to people, and we want to, like, we want to sensitize them. Ultimately, I'm using the word sensitize a lot, but yeah, basically sensitize them. And then we are also hoping that we'll have a session on LGBT job opportunities for LGBTQI plus identifying individuals. And also uh, there we are thinking that we'll have one session where, because we already have a session on mental health, so we're thinking also having a session on of medical health, of medical health, and what are the safe accesses, and how can people access medical, and people, especially LGBT, identifying, non-binary people have very difficult, very have a lot of issues, identifying, safely accessing medical facilities. So about that we are going to have an issue, have a discussion basically. And then and I was also thinking that, in the Northeast perspective, if you look at it, then there isn't much discussion about drag culture, but it is very much a part of LGBTQIA plus. So
Hmm.
I was also thinking that, to have a discussion about drag culture, what it is, I think it will be like the highlight of all the sessions. For me, definitely it kind of is. I love drag. So and also we're trying to bring out stories from the community, give people who identify as LGBTQI plus, to give, to give them a platform. And not people like, people like me, who I would say I'm quite privileged, because I have access to the internet, I can speak English, I can talk about myself. I have talked about myself in so many platforms, but there are other people who have not gotten that platform, who have not been able to share their stories. So we want to bring out those stories. We want to give those people who want it, definitely, that platform. So these are basically the sessions that we have, as of now. And also, like, the stories of the why we want to bring out the stories from the communities, because we will be talking about a lot of things, basically about the gender identities, about sexuality and everything. But one cannot relate to it if one does not see it, or one does not hear from somebody who has had that on ground experience. So we want people to have that on ground experience by hearing those stories from the ground. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's such an amazing lineup of the docs itself, that is itself really beautifully planned out. But what I also like is that anybody getting infused to these subjects are hearing from both experts from the field, like who worked on the issue, and also people who are living the experience. Like for example, we see in the LGBTQIA plus community, the same people keep showing up in all the panels and all the webinars. So then when you include stories from the community, so I can listen to a a woman living a lesbian experienced in Tejpur. So yeah, I'm like, kudos to you, thanks for planning this out, and thanks for being so thoughtful about, okay, I've had the chance to talk in so many platforms, so I'm going to start creating platforms for people now. So yeah, thank you
And
for that.
also, like, big thanks to you, because these sessions that we have prepared, they would not have been prepared, like, if I hadn't gotten the help from my dear friend, which is you. So yeah.
Thank you. Now see, people are going to think that I thank you for you to thank me.
No, seriously, because we need to work together,
Okay.
right? Because ultimately we are all working towards the same issue, so we need to work together if we want to, not, if we want to break all these taboos, if we want to sensitize people, ultimately we need to work together.
Yeah, yeah. So now I'm going to bombard you with three questions, but it's the final questions. Um, no, actually, one have before that. How has Hobdo changed Luku? Because I know Ori Kalankini has changed Sneha. So I'm curious, how has Hobdo changed Luku?
So one is that, um when I look back, to myself in 2018, to when before to where before Hopdo started, um, I was a little confused about, about what I want to do in life, because I so I was working as a human rights activist. So I had done my masters in mass communication and journalism. Then I got into the human rights field. Then I was working as a human rights activist. And then I really wanted to go for a program, like a full-time program in human rights, to understand human rights and come back and work. And then I got my interest, in LGBTQI plus rights. And then I did not know what to do. So there, because as a human rights activist, I was working basically on labor rights, on right to food, right to education, and the right to healthcare, reproductive healthcare. So um, then I was like, okay, I have all of these now. What do I do? So starting Hopto, it gave me a sense of direction. Like gave me, it showed me the way. This is what you're supposed to do. This is something that you're most passionate about. So so I think I have turned into a much more, less confused. Like I have turned into a less confused human being. I am very, I am working on my passion basically, something that I have always felt passionately about. I'm working on that right now. I am like, I have become a positive human being as well, and now I'm more of a team player because I can also sort of I have an issue with not delegating work, but thanks to Hobdo, I can also delegate work and I can work more with people and work more on ideas. And I basically everybody calls me a social butterfly, but I think I have social anxiety. I look like a social butterfly, but actually I have social anxiety. But after Hopdo, I don't think I have that anymore because I don't know. I think Hopdo has changed me as a person, as a human being. I am more I am more communicative these days. I'm more communicative now because they say because Hopdo is like my baby. So after they say after you have a baby you change, and that is what happened to me, I would say. I sound stupid, I know, but but that's the the metaphors. But yeah, that's what happened to me. Like I can't explain how it changed me, but I know it did.
Yeah, thank you. And for people who don't know what Luku has done before that, what Luku is calling as confusion is just like a whole lot of brilliant work. Your work with tree plantation workers, and what you spoke about healthcare and maternity rights, getting them. So yeah, I mean we're not going into that because we want to focus the session on Hobdo, but please look who up, and you will know that it how much of an honor it is to talk to you. And I wish probably we'll have another conversation around the other work, but this was for Hobdo. So the bombardment of questions is this: Hobdo has changed you till now. So where does what changes would you like to see in yourself over next few years? What changes would you like to see in the Northeast region, and how LGBTQIA plus people are 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 living there in next few years? And also, how do you see Hobdo growing in the next few years?
Mm, in the next few years, basically, um, I'm just hoping that there's more visibility in the public sphere when it comes to LGBTQI plus people. And there are like we are already working on that, and I'm sure that there will be a positive outcome to everything that all of the LGBTQI plus identifying, all the like LGBT organizations are doing here in Assam. So we are like we really hope that there will be more inclusive public and private inclusive uh, public and private institutions for LGBTQI plus. For example, there'll be more there'll be more support groups, support groups for people for by people identifying as LGBT in educational institutions, in in work, other workplaces, be it public or private. There should be support group for people identifying as LGBT, and not and not be insensitive about these issues. And also, like, we hope that there are like, zero tolerance policies start, on bullying, because we know, we ourselves, you know all of us, I think we know one or the other person who has been bullied in their childhood, in their workplace, because they are not what society, wants them to be. So so we really hope that, there is less, there are more, policies against bullying, no tolerance policies against bullying. And then, definitely, there should be policies like zero tolerance against harassment as well, policies that, have zero tolerance against harassments. And there should be reservations, I would say, for LGBTQI plus identifying people, because I think they are a really marginalized community, and there should be reservations for them. For there are a lot of, there are a lot of youth who are, not accepted by their family, who are driven out of the house. And we hope that, um, uh, shelter homes can be opened up for them. Shelter homes can be opened up for such youth to at least, spend their time until they find something. And, for such youth, and even for, even for uh, even for, non-binary, or trans identifying youth, there should be reservations, I would say. And then the public space,
Connect.
one can you hear me now? Okay. And also, one thing is very important is that, you know um, there is no safe and accessible space for dating, you know especially for women. I don't think there is, like, safe or accessible space, you know like. But we hope that in the future, in the coming years, these scenarios change, but as of now there aren't any. So we really hope that, these scenarios change, and, women, like, are have more space in the community, have more say in the community, in the coming years. And, and you know non toilets for non accessible toilets for non-binary people in the public space, for non-binary people, for women in the public space. Basically, we hope that there is inclusivity, because once inclusivity comes, all of these will follow trail. But as long as people are not sensitized enough, as long as they are, like, insensitive towards LGBTQI plus, as long as there is no inclusivity, all these things will not be there. So we hope that in the next few years there is more inclusivity. And yes, there is a lot of, like, things are really growing. Institutions are being inclusive about LGBT, because, when like, for Tezpur itself, I would say, in case of Tezpur itself, be it the Tezpur Law College, be it the Tezpur University, be it the LGB Regional Institute of Mental Health, they are actually trying their best to be inclusive, because it's difficult to come out of the cisgender heteronormative thought process, but they are trying to do what they can in their own ways. So I hope that this continues, and there are more institutions, more public spheres where, where people are inclusive about LGBTQI plus. And even, like, even restaurants and all those things, I think it's important that they are inclusive. So yeah.
Thank you so much. You're right. Like once the thought starts changing, and then it's easy to even lobby for policies.
Yes, exactly.
How can people contact you?
So people can contact us by messaging us on our Facebook and our Instagram pages, which we have the same name, Hopdo, XOBDO. We are very fast in replying, so people can definitely contact us. You
Whoa,
are
I'm cute. Yes, thank you so much for spending an hour with us and really explaining both the process of your work and also the experience that led you to it. So now I would like to thank you again and go off live from Facebook so I can, do a check-in with you. And we're very happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Shall we?
Yes, we shall.